a playlist original.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Back to the Blockbuster. My name is Gaius Bowling, and it's a special week this week. It's Thanksgiving, so I am personally very thankful for having a guest on tonight that's going to help me get through some big industry topics for the week. He's actually been on the show once before. Been wanting to get him back on again since his first appearance, and I'm glad that he's here helping me out. So thank you, Zach, once again for helping out.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me. Excited.
Yeah, it's great. Just a little backstory. You were on our Dark Knight Rises anniversary episode. Found you because you were like, "Hey, I'm a fan of the movie. I just recently rewatched it. Can I be on?" And I was like, "Sure." And it was cool because I think that was the first time I think on the show that we had someone on that was just like a fan of stuff. Like everyone else, we've had guests like they do other podcasts or they are working press and stuff like that. So it was really cool just to have like a fan kind of person on that like still had some really good takes on the movie, and it was just just a lot of fun. And I think you had a good time, and I think you held your own with everyone else, so it was perfect.
Love
So
it. Yeah, it's funny that I found you on Twitter.
yeah, yeah, it's funny that we found each other there, and then like, what was it last week? I feel like everyone was like starting to jump ship. They were like, "I don't think it's going to be operating tomorrow. It doesn't look too good." I was like, "Yeah, it doesn't look too good over at Twitter, but still there, still alive. It hasn't shut down yet."
Right.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
yeah. You know what? It's such a freaking hellscape there, but it also like you get to meet people like yourself, like on stuff like that. So like there is some good that comes from it. So
Right.
that's why I wanted to stick around. I'm just like sitting back and enjoying the show for now, at least seeing what changes with it day to day. Um,
Yeah.
but what about you? What's been new with you since your last one? I've been wanting to try to get you back on for a
Yeah.
bit. I think I messaged you a couple of weeks ago, and I just randomly asked, like, "Are you like a fan of like all movies or just like comic book stuff?" And you're like, "Oh, all movies." I was like, "Oh, that's perfect." So I don't have to wait for like
Right.
a comic book thing to happen. I think I thought about doing it for Black Adam, but you hadn't seen it yet when we saw it for the podcast. That
Yeah. I waited for the $5 movie night because I was like, is this gonna be worth seeing? Like I didn't know. I didn't know. I did get
yeah,
spoiled though. I got the spoiler at the very end was spoiled for me before I went and saw it, which made
yeah.
me sad.
I also think it's really funny that the producers said like, "Oh, like we were really mad that that got like leaked out," and I was like, "Well, I feel like it happened so early that you guys probably leaked it out." It was like, "Hey, like we
Right.
need a
Like
little
they
bit of
definitely
push."
wanted some people to go see it. Yeah.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
want a little bit. Yeah,
yeah.
it had
You
to
know,
be.
I would have loved for that to have been a surprise. I mean, I think we all kind of suspected it was going to happen anyway, but it
Right.
would have been nice had I not like got on Twitter of all places again, and like one of the first things that popped up, it was like, "Oh well, shit." No surprises there, but I mean, it was still a cool moment in the theater though. Like I saw it opening night, and everyone like cheered their faces off when he showed up. So
Yeah.
people still have mad love for Henry
Everyone
Cavill.
in my theater was like, wait, what? Like they didn't like. I was going crazy. I was like, yes, and then
Yeah,
everyone
yeah.
was like, what?
Well, it is interesting too because I have a buddy that like he only saw it because like it's a Dwayne Johnson movie. He didn't see it because of he's a big like DC person or anything like that. So I guess like he was like, "Yo, I knew that that guy played Superman. I knew Henry Cavill played him, but then I kind of forgot." And then I was like, "Why is everyone making such a big deal that he's like at the end of this movie?" And I was like, "Because like that's the one thing that like most of those fans wanted. They wanted him back
Right.
so bad, and
Mhm.
you know." It was like one of those things I felt like every nerd like put it out in the universe. And they're like, please let it happen.
Yeah.
And
It's funny because when I was last on, it was like this summer, right?
yeah, yeah,
And we were like talking about Batman and like the DC extended universe, and
yeah,
now that's kind of gained a little traction in Steam. So I'm interested to hear like your take, and you also saw Black Panther, so
yeah,
I'm interested
I
to see
did.
like hear what you thought about it. So yeah, a
Yeah,
lot's
yeah.
changed since then.
A lot has changed. Yeah, yeah. We were just talking about how like because we were talking about the Dark Knight Rises for its anniversary, and we were like, yeah, like the whole DC thing is changed for better or worse because of like, you had stuff like the Dark Knight Rises and that bar, or just that trilogy in general, and the bar is just so high that when they started cranking out these the DC extended universe stuff. Now it's DCU. I guess they want it to be DC universe. I think they want to make sure that that things are changing over there. But yeah, it is interesting that like a lot has changed, and I think Black Adam was a nice. I thought it was a good step in the right direction. I mean, I was like kind of like you. Like I think I was on the fence about it. Like I knew I had to see it opening weekend because of work and stuff, but I was kind of like, hey, this is go either way. It could be really fun or it could be really bad. I was almost swayed by the reviews, so I was like, that's really low. That's like it was like when I think the opening weekend it was a 40% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I was like, well, that's not good. But then I looked at the audience score, like leading up to going to see it, and I was like, well, the audience score is high, so that's all that matters, I guess. And then when I finally saw it, I was like, okay, you know what? I can see why critics wouldn't like it, but I was so thoroughly entertained by it, and it's been a long time since DC has been able to like thoroughly entertain, where you're just like,
me and you had like the same thoughts on it.
Yeah, it's like it was fun.
You kind of talked me into going to see it.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, like it's of course Dwayne Johnson. Like I don't want to. He's a bona fide movie star. I think he's It was hard for me to watch it sometimes, not be like, all right, this is Dwayne Johnson playing Black Adam, and like I don't really think he fully became the character, even though he is like a little different from how he normally is in his other movies. Like, he's a little bit, he's the anti-hero, so he wasn't like there weren't a lot of quips, and he wasn't really funny. He was a lot. I know a lot of critics were they thought it was a detriment that like someone as charismatic as Dwayne Johnson, he didn't really have that on display in this movie because he couldn't really do his normal shtick.
Yeah.
But like the thing is though, he cares that the audience is entertained. I told someone that was on the show actually a few times that like if I was a studio, I would single-handedly want him promoting my movie. He can do it all by himself. Like he knows exactly what he's doing, right? And even though we'll talk about box office a little bit, even though like I know in his mind he's like this could be making more money, the best way for you to promote something like that, even though it probably should be making more money, it's like, hey, we were the #1 movie in the world for 3 weeks. We don't really need to talk about numbers, but we were the #1 movie in the world for 3 weeks. So he ignored the critic score. He's like, thank you for this 90% audience score. Like, he knows what he's doing, and like, I respect that.
Totally respect. He was big, like tweeting like this is for the fans. Like we want the DC universe back. Like he was like, yeah, he gotta like. I love to see that from somebody like him.
Yeah, and like he became. It's so funny because even if I feel like he became like not only promoting Black Adam, but he was like, I got to promote this like new DC that we're trying to create and how important. Absolutely. And the cool thing too, I thought, is that he didn't. It's cool that he didn't throw any shade at Marvel. Like even like before the reviews came out for Black Adam, a lot of people were on the red carpet. They were like, oh, like should Marvel be worried? This is like you made all these comments about how this is going to change the hierarchy of like the DC universe, and he was just like, this is not about like competition. This is more about like Marvel has allowed our industry to thrive for the last like how many years? Like all these movies are making a lot of money. They're driving people to the movie theater. Like he's like, we want to do our own thing with DC, and like we can kind of coexist. And like I think that was it was good to like, and he mentioned being friends with Kevin Feige and how like he understands like we all need to be successful in order for this stuff to work.
Yeah.
So I thought that was he's a class act, that one. I think like there's a reason why he's one of the biggest movie stars in the world, and I think that's it.
Agreed.
So I guess let's catch up everyone with you. I guess you haven't been on since December. But I will tell you that the Dark Knight Rises anniversary episode was one of our most downloaded episodes. So you're a part of that. So that's awesome.
Great conversation.
So it was really good conversation, and like I said, like you're talking to other people who work in the industry and stuff like that, and you like held your own pretty well. So I was like, yeah, I will definitely like to have him back on if he wants to be back on. So
okay, man. It's like because I follow you guys. I follow those other two, and like I keep track of. These are some cool dudes that like know what they're talking about. So yeah, it was cool to even be a part of that. So I've been up to like same. You go to the movies a lot more than me, obviously. I want to go more, but like it has to like something really has to pull me there. You know, it's like
Yeah.
I'm a big movie guy, but like I also like a lot of like old movies or movies that are like already out. Like I have a lot on DVD. So like get me to the theater. It's got to be something that's like pulling me there.
Yeah.
So last movie I saw was Black Adam. Enjoyed it a ton, like you said.
Yeah.
The action, Dr. Fate was so sweet.
Yeah.
Like, that's one of the cool characters.
He definitely stood out the most, I think, out of like, yeah. Actually, I really like the yeah, he looked great. I actually like the JSA stuff a lot. You know, I do get the complaint that there wasn't it felt like a lot in one movie, you know, trying to introduce all of them and like, you know, giving them you know the necessary time they needed. But like, you know, I thought it was just enough where I'd be like, okay, like, well, we see them in a future project, then we can expand on like some more of their personalities later. You know, it's all they can really do. Like it's an origin story, and you're trying to fit in a lot. And I know that's a big gripe with some people with comic book movies, especially when it's an origin movie. It's like, all right, we have to explain who these people are, but we also have to like move the plot forward, and that can be hard when especially if a movie's not that long. I thought like it was long enough, but like it's hard to do that in like 2 hours.
It could have been longer, honestly. Like yeah, they kind of wanted to make the action packed. They wanted people to be entertained the whole time they were there. They kind of had that theme going.
Yeah,
and you had Pierce. Was it Pierce? No, James Bond.
James Bond.
Like,
yeah, and like
you can't take your time with him. Like he wants to come in and do the job. Like he would do so good, dude.
He was really good, and what I loved about him in this, I think that like he's at this stage in his career where he's like, I just want to have fun, and it seemed like he was really enjoying himself. Like it seemed like he was like, this is like a big fun project to be a part of. Like I thought they all really gelled really well together. I thought they were all like, I didn't know much about Noah Centineo. Like I know he's in like some Netflix stuff that girls like he's in like all those rom-com-y. I've never seen a lot of it, and I thought that he was really funny. So it was like they were all really good. I thought they, you know, it's a lot to kind of what that movie needed to do. I think for the fans who saw it and liked it, they needed a DC, Warner Brothers Discovery, whatever you want to call them now. They needed a W real bad. Like I mean, they really needed a W, and I think that they mostly got it, at least from fans that seemed like they liked it. You know, we're gonna talk about box office a little bit. I mean, I do think because like a producer said at the low end that the movie needed to make like 450, 475 worldwide, and that was like on the low end, and it's struggling to get there, and it has a lot to do with the fact that it's not going to get a release in China as of now, and that's a huge market. It's also a huge market for.
Why is that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a huge market for Dwayne. Like a lot of like movie stars here, like for some reason, huge over there. Like you know, the Fast and the Furious movies do really well there. He's an international movie star, so like it's just a really big. It's always been like a big box office market. But they're really the censors there are just like if there's certain things in the movie that they don't agree with, and it tends to not get a release there. I know that Black Panther is not getting one either right now because of a brief moment in the movie. They're not. Yeah. So it's crazy that like you know they're like you know it's a huge market that like you know of course studios want to like have an impact on because it's a lot of money for them, but like when you get down to like the nitty gritty about why they won't release certain movies, it's like wow, it's pretty awful for you guys to like single stuff like that out. But yeah, you know, it's funny that you mentioned that like Black Adam could have been like longer. I know you didn't see Black Panther Wakanda Forever, but 2 hours and 45 minutes is a long time. And I know, I mean, and you know, I'm a week removed from seeing it. I mentioned we reviewed it, myself and a new friend of the show, Brandon. Like we kind of reviewed it last week on the podcast, and I rewatched the first one again after because I had said I didn't have time. I have time to watch the first one before seeing the second one again. I actually think overall the second one is a better movie, but I don't think everyone necessarily agrees with that. I just think that like, dude, I know you haven't seen it, but there's a lot of like baggage. I mean, like what Ryan Coogler had to do to get that movie made, and like what they had to deal with, like you know their lead actor passes away, and like you know they had one script completely written with a completely different story that involved him, and then like now you have to go back to the drawing board and like do all that over again. And I'm sure it was hard for the actors and stuff to really you know you know, it's a joyous thing because you want to like honor like your brother, you know, but at the same time, it's like this person that was kind of like the captain of the ship is like no longer there. So there's like that grief kind of permeates throughout the whole movie, and I think that that gives it for me at least a little bit more of an emotional edge over the first one.
Right.
And like you
Right.
know, and a lot of people stepped up. I mean, these. I mean, I'm not saying that not bad actors by any sense of the imagination, but like people like Letitia Wright had to step up in a big way. I don't think that that was necessarily the plan for her, at least not right away. For what happens with her character, like her arc is like the best thing about the movie. I think Angela Bassett has much more screen time in this, and she fucking kills it. I mean, she could read like the phone book, and I think she would be really good. Um, but you could tell like all their emotions are like raw and real, and I think that you know that really helps out the movie a lot. I think, even though it's by necessity, it has to be a little different from the other MCU movies.
Yeah.
Because like there are little things in it that set up like kind of future project. There's like you know there's a little bit of a setup for like Thunderbolts and stuff like that, but like it's mostly a contained story about like how they are dealing with the loss of this character, and at the same time they're speaking like all the dialogue is like they could easily just be talking about Chadwick Boseman himself. Like it's just like
Right.
how do we kind of soldier on without like our leader? And then by the end of it, they find a place where they kind of can, and you kind of can feel that happening on screen and in real life. So like it was, I think that for at least for me made it better. I think that for some people, like I've have a couple friends that like liked it, but like you know they thought it kind of stayed in that grief a little too long. But it was like, well, what else were you gonna do? I mean, had to honor him, and
Yeah.
you can just gloss over it and be like, well, oh, here's a new Black Panther. Like we had a funeral for him in the first 20 minutes, and that's it. Um, I do think that might have hurt box office a little bit this weekend. Like it made like I think $67 million, sixty-seven point
I
three
was
million
gonna
dollars
ask you, so
this
it's on
weekend.
pace to like kick Black Adam's butt in the box office numbers,
Yeah,
right?
so it actually already so worldwide, it has already made $546 million globally.
Oh man.
That's in
Wow.
that's in 2 weeks. Black Adam, and I'm not shitting on it, but like Black Adam has made $366 million globally. It's slowing down
I
a
mean,
bit here, you know. It's made 157 million
yeah.
domestically. It's not going to hit $200 million here. Um, and you know what? Yeah, I can kind of talk about
Number.
both of these things. I can talk about both of these things. Like it's a $200 million movie, and that doesn't even include marketing costs, right? So I know I kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, but like if you're Warner Brothers Discovery, DC, are you concerned that it didn't make as much as you probably liked, or you think they'll kind of spin it later when they're like, oh, once it gets released digitally, they'll have those numbers. Once it hits Blu-ray, they'll have those sale numbers, and they'll kind of spin it as like it was a hit. We were very happy with how it did.
Dude, that's a great question. I don't. The fact that they even brought a movie out and like it was that entertaining, like we talked, like, it was that entertaining, looked that good. You know, you left the
Right.
theater feeling okay about it. Had Superman at the end, like that's a
Yeah.
win in itself. The numbers
Right.
side obviously is a little bit like, but like they
Yeah.
had no direction. They had no real direction where they're going. So have like someone like talked about with The Rock, like advocating for DC and like this
Right.
for the fans, like we owe the fans so much. Like that was really good to see. So it's a dub, but it's also an L in like the same
Yeah. I mean,
field.
like you know, it's a lot of box office sites like have been careful about calling it a flop. I don't think it's a flop. Um, but I think some money was left on the table a little bit. I mean, and I think that's like that could be a lot of like people being unsure if they can trust DC, because like the track record lately hasn't been great. I know for some people they didn't even know who Black Adam was. He's not like a Superman or a Batman. Um, I know I had some friends that were confused by the whole like they were like, wait, he says Shazam too. I thought that other guy did that. I was like, yeah, there's that. So there, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of confusion from like regular people who are like,
I
yeah,
don't
I'm
know
never,
what.
yeah. Um,
I mean, it makes you think that. Like, have you seen like the Injustice, like Superman versus Batman? Like,
yeah,
it makes me think they're going that way because like they're making another Shazam movie, the Shazam 2 trailer
Yeah.
was in the for Black Adam.
Yeah,
I'm
the
like,
Black Adam, yeah.
so they try to like get all these people like together, and then like they're gonna all fight super because then Superman's at the end of it. Like that makes
Yeah,
me
what-
seem like they're trying to go that route because they have Aquaman 2 coming out, and then like
Then they have the
Batfleck's
Flash.
supposed to be in that movie, and then the
Yeah.
Flash and
Right.
Batfleck's supposed to be in that towards something. Like you
Yeah.
saw what Marvel did, how successful that was. Like it's all got to be heading somewhere, right?
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, I think what they have to deal with right now too, right, is that like of course this merger, there's like new leadership. I mean, I think it's cool that like DC Films has James Gunn now and Peter Safran. I think having James Gunn be the new creative mind behind how to drive this, and having Peter be like the money guy, I think that's smart and it's a step in the right direction. I think, and and that's part of one of the stories I sent you. I think like what they have to do is like, okay, we already have these things that are already finished before we even merged, right? They canceled outright, got rid of Batgirl because they're like, yeah, that's not going to work for us. And people feel certain kind of ways about like how they did that and if it was a shitty thing to do. I personally, I get that it is a business move, but to like toss a movie that's pretty much already finished and then like all those people that work on it and probably worked really hard on it. And yeah, you know what? The rumors might be true. It might have been like CW level bad. It could have been, but like give people a chance to see it. Like, but so they get rid of that. But then like they have, of course, at the time when they were merging, they had Black Adam before. Like this is all before October. They knew they had Shazam, and they knew they had Aquaman and the Flash, and those are already done. So, and then like I think they have like that Blue Beetle thing too that was going to go to HBO Max, and now that's going theatrical.
Blue Beetle too. Yeah.
So they're like, okay, we already have these in the pipeline. We can't, they're going to exist. We have to release them, right? And like depending on who you want to believe, like I've heard rumors that the test screenings that they did for the Flash, like some time back, were really good. And I think Ezra Miller is off somewhere getting some help, so that could be good. But it's like I think what it can confuse people is like, what's the plan moving forward? Like they made that comment in the story I sent you about like it seems like the plan now is like we're not gonna have like 4 Batmans in this universe. So it's like, so some people are like, well, what's the deal with the Flash? Or you're doing like this whole like, there's like a multiverse thing going on. You have Michael Keaton's Batman, who's still going to be in it. Then of course people are confused because Ben Affleck's Batman is probably in Aquaman. I think he has like a cameo in the Flash as well. And then of course you have like Robert Pattinson's like the Batman, and I could see their point of being like they want something more focused and streamlined moving forward. Right. But that is kind of hard to establish when you have like 4 or 5 movies on the way that have to, well, like, we got to do this first. And like, it's, I'm optimistic because of like who's running it now.
Yeah.
But there's just still a lot of work to do. And like, and I know like the story with Henry Cavill and like his Superman deal not being like a done deal. Some people were like upset because it seems kind of clickbaity, but like I mean, I guess it could be, but like it's like, hey, like we live in this like kind of thing now with like industry news where people like announce stuff on social media ahead of like any deal being done. So it's just like, I know they want to like rev up excitement and like kind of be like, all right, look, I'm back. Like makes a whole Instagram video about like, thank you for your patience. It's so good that I'm basically back. And I just wouldn't make something like that unless my deal was like done. Like all the T's have been crossed and all the I's been dotted. Like
they also found something where like this contract doesn't, they must like be finalizing it. But
right.
I wish that DC, like, because obviously like you talked about, like it's all numbers based. Like what can make us the most money right now? Like that's what it is now. I wish I understood, like, well, you develop these characters in these movies slowly, like Marvel did. You will get there. Like, I don't understand.
Exactly.
Like, they were like, oh, we just want to make. Like, you got to like develop those things over a number of different movies. But like, I think they're trying to start that direction. Like optimistic about it. I agree with you on that. But like, come on, just get it right. Like, let's go. Let's do this.
Exactly. I think they said now they basically said James Gunn and Peter Safran's like 10-year Bible for DC is basically done. But how crazy is it that like I mean, I know they. How crazy is that? Now you're like, yeah, we need a 10-year plan. Like, how do you go through like this whole thing while watching like? I mean, I know like the other regime, like Walter Amada, however you feel about how he handled things. It makes no sense to me, and I know it's like Marvel's not perfect, right? They've had like some kind of missteps, but like there is no shame in like copying that playbook if you're DC.
No,
If you're DC, like
I don't know.
the fact that like, we talked about it a few times on the show where it's like building up to like Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. You had all these other stories that like slowly, all these other movies that slowly built on that, right? Which is why like
Absolutely.
Infinity War and Endgame are so satisfying, by the time they wrap up, because it's like we took our time to get here. uh in DC, I don't understand like how that's such a hard thing to be like, you know what?
Yeah,
Maybe if we just didn't rush anything, like if we just like took our time, and I think they get excited by like certain like flukes, like Wonder Woman. All right, good reviews, makes a lot of money, and they get excited by that, and then they just like carry on with like no real thought, and then all right, okay, you
yeah,
give us Justice League, and that had its own share of like problems like that very, if you guys don't know, very well documented on the internet. You can look it all up. What happened with Justice League, and then what led to like Zack Snyder's Justice League. um it just seems like it really, I mean, at that point I guess there was too many cooks in the kitchen. Everyone was trying to like decide what's best. um and I'm not saying like it's interesting because like Black Panther ended this like phase from Marvel, and like people have gone back and forth now that this phase is over, like, well, how was it overall? And I think this is the first real time I think that Marvel has faced like kind of like this criticism a little bit for oversaturating the market. I know that they released a story saying that some people are like fatigued by all the Marvel stuff, because now it's like you got the movies, and then you got TV shows,
mhm,
and then you got not even just TV shows, but you have like one-off like specials like Werewolf by Night, and then you have this like Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. Like there's all this stuff you have to like keep up with. Like, you know, I love Marvel movies, but there was a point when I was watching Black Panther when I was like trying to keep up of like, I was like, so when did like where are we at as far as like what's gonna happen next in this next phase? Because I like there's so much,
yeah,
and there's so many movies to like think back on. I'm like, I think that it's also, this phase was really different from like the other stuff they had done before. Like it seems like a lot of the movies in this phase are
yeah,
like a little bit more self-contained, and like, and they weren't really telling like a bigger overarching story yet. Like, how like you had Thanos was pretty hinted at early on in like those early stages of Marvel. And I remember after like I think Love and Thunder came out, and like everyone was like, do we still not know what the like who's gonna be like the big bad? Like what's coming? And then like, of course now they made that announcement with like the Kang Dynasty and like Secret Wars and like stuff like that. But like there was like I think people were getting frustrated because they're like, we have all these movies in this phase and we don't even know like what's the new big threat, like what's coming. um I kind of wonder too, like Black Panther, of course, is making a lot of money. It's gonna play well throughout. Like I even think through December, it's still gonna like leg it out. But it did drop
yeah,
63% this weekend, and like that kind of is in line with like what the Multiverse Madness did. That's what Thor: Love and Thunder did in this second weekend. Kind of similar. I think people thought that this was gonna ease a little bit better than those movies. Um, but I think there's a few reasons why. I mean, like, I don't think it's an issue of quality. I think it's timing's just different compared to the first Black Panther movie. Like I mentioned it when we reviewed it, that like that was like a pop cultural movement. That first movie, it was like it hadn't really, you hadn't seen something like that
yeah,
before, and like that kind of like that's gonna wear off by the time you get to the second one, because it doesn't feel as fresh and new anymore. And then you also have a movie that's 2 hours and 45 minutes. So that's an investment. And yeah, I just think it's and it's also like not a fun movie like the first one was. But that's like I said, like necessity. You're that's just kind of what came along with like real life tragedy, kind of like coinciding with it.
right.
So like,
Yeah,
no one at Disney is gonna be sneezing at the amount of money. It like you're like, oh, I can't believe it. It's gonna play very well. I even think without China, it has a shot at $1 billion worldwide if it can kind of like,
wow,
because it did
wow,
fare, its drop overseas was, I think it was way less than it was domestically. It's gonna be if it doesn't make it, it's gonna be really close. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that like right now it is kind of gunning for being. It's possible that it could become the biggest, like the second biggest movie. Well, I guess you have like it has to top Top Gun Maverick, and that's not gonna happen here. Actually, it might not even happen worldwide because that movie was just an anomaly that just kept playing well. Like it kind of made you question everything about box office. It was like, all right, man, I guess like all you need is a good legacy sequel, and you can make over $700 million if you're Tom Cruise. Like 60, good for him. Um, there's also it doesn't have any competition until Avatar, The Way of the Water. Another long movie. Found out today, 3 hours and 12
Yeah, I
minutes.
saw that.
I was like,
That's
what ridiculous. I was dying, like speaking of box office, because they were like the budget apparently for that movie is like reportedly like $250 million. And they did an interview with James Cameron for GQ, and they were like, how much does this movie have to make for you to like break even? And he was like, well, it was really fucking expensive, his exact words. And that in order for, I don't know if it's just his personal benchmark or if it's like Disney and 20th Studios benchmark, but he said it would have to be the third or fourth highest grossing movie of all time in order to break even. So keep in mind that like because of like re-releases and stuff, like the first Avatar made $2.9 billion worldwide. For a while there, Avengers Endgame topped it, and then they re-released Avatar because like just greedy. But who cares? It's all that money's going to Disney, so I guess it doesn't really matter. Um, you know, the Avengers Endgame makes $2.7 billion, right? And I think Titanic is another movie of his is in that range. So they were saying
right.
that in order for him to be pleased, it would have to top the like 2.07 billion that The Force Awakens made worldwide.
Yeah.
I know I didn't bring this up that we would like talk. I just want to talk about it briefly. I've seen so many trailers for this movie lately. I'm not a huge fan of the first one. I think it's a beautiful movie. It's pretty. Um, I just don't. I've always like scratched my head about like how the hell did this become like the highest grossing movie of all time for like a period. Like I did. Um, and the sequel doesn't look that interesting to me either. I mean, it still looks pretty, and I'm sure it'll look great on an IMAX screen. And there's that. I also don't want to sit in the theater for 3 hours and 12 minutes.
I had this conversation with my friends the other day. They were like, "Oh, the new Avatar is coming out." I'm like, "Why did they wait
This
10
long?
years?" Like the hype's kind of, for me personally, the hype's like died down. Like if it would have came out, fine. I know it takes a long time to do what they do, and like they shoot it in these like with these different cameras or whatever, and like they try to make it look so real. But, like the hype's died down. Like you said, like I don't really see anything about this like where I'm like, whoa, I cannot wait to see this 3 hour movie. Like
Yeah.
the first one, it was pretty good because like it was shot really, like it looked super good. I saw it in real D3D, which they shot it with really 3D cameras.
Yeah.
Like it like felt like you were there. Like it was like
Yeah.
one of the coolest movie experiences of my entire life. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't know if it's gonna make that, man. Like that's a high ass.
So like I read today that it entered box office tracking opening weekend to make like $132 million. That's what they think it'll open to. And that, I mean, and of course it's gonna play over the holidays, and like the Christmas time holiday movie rush is really good for movies like that. But like that felt kind of low to me considering the wait. But I guess like there is a bit of uncertainty about how it's gonna do, because like this is a much different like box office landscape that we're in compared to when the first one came out. And I think James Cameron even knows it. He basically said like this one has to be successful if you guys want to see the other ones we made. So like he has plans for all these sequels. Like dude, I will. The James Cameron press tour for this so far has been like, because he's so like grouchy and grumpy. It's like it's hilarious. It's hilarious to me because like there's no like the way he just said it, like, if you guys want these other ones, you gotta go see this one because it's not, if it doesn't make any money, like we're screwed. And I mentioned this on the episode we did last week, but I just thought it was so funny that he's doing an interview. I think Vanity Fair but it was for print, but it was also recorded. And he, of course, like a lot of directors who are veterans, the Scorseses, the Spielbergs, the Camerons, he kind of took a dig at like Marvel and DC about how like the characters, that there's no real like depth to any of the characters, and like that's what he wanted for like his Avatar sequel. And I just thought it was so funny because he's sitting right next to Zoe Saldana, who has been in like 6 MCU movies. And I'm just thinking, like, in her head, she's like, motherfucker, like I've been in some of those. Are you gonna say that, like, what? Yeah, but no, I'm here for like the grumpy, like, demanding us to go see his movie. I mean, on the one hand, he says he thinks he has faith in like moviegoers that will they'll go see it and embrace it. It'd be much easier for me to embrace if it wasn't 3 hours and 12 minutes.
When does it come out?
December 16th. It actually comes out a day before my birthday.
And didn't the big live trailer drop on Monday Night Football tonight? Did you see that?
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah, and
I haven't seen it.
yeah, it's it's like I don't want any movie to fail. Like it's good for the industry when movies like this do well. Um,
Right.
I just don't like you said, man. Like if you were if this had been 5 years ago, and I'm saying this as someone that doesn't even love the first movie, I would still be interested in saying like, all right, I wonder if it could be any better. Like if I'll think of it differently, you
Right.
know. And of course, I'm one of those people that say I didn't love the first one that much, but I still own it because it looks great on my fucking TV. So like occasionally you just want to pop it in and be like, look how pretty it looks. But like I have a feeling that it'll get really good reviews and people will like it, and um, I just don't know if it's
I don't
my
know,
friend
man.
my
I
friend wants
don't
to put
know.
money on if it will like be the biggest movie of the year, and I was like, it has to Top Gun Maverick domestically. That's gonna be hard. I think a 700
That's gonna
million
be tough.
a 700 million plus domestic gross for Avatar seems unattainable to me. I think it's like it's not like it was when the first one came out. It's like that was something to marvel at because you hadn't really seen anything like it before, and now like I don't think they're gonna have the same like wow factor this time, at least from like casual moviegoers. Um,
Yeah, it's nothing really different.
Critics can tell you all day long about how it's one of the most beautiful movies ever made, and you must see it. But like, people are gonna be like, "Yeah, well, I kind of saw it before already, and this is like the same thing again." So like,
Just the new one just underwater. Like that's just
yeah,
like the
I guess
like
the
the
only
bottom of my
encouraging thing
sect.
is that the only encouraging thing is that I guess the re-release they did in September did pretty well. The first movie.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess there is some interest in it. I just like I just
I'm with you.
I would still I mean if I can end the year with Top Gun Maverick being the highest grossing domestic release this year, I would be very happy. Because I don't think anyone saw that coming. Maybe Tom Cruise saw it coming because like there's a reason why he was like, don't put this on Paramount Plus. Delay it, delay it, delay it until people can go back to the movies. And I'm sure the people at Paramount were like, well, fuck, like how long do you want us to delay it? And I'm sure they were like, once they saw the numbers come in, they were like, yeah, you know what? Tom Cruise never wrong. So there you go. But it's weird because like there's actually a lot of momentum behind Top Gun. They think he can get a Best Picture nomination at the Oscars. There's a little bit of a Tom Cruise Best Actor nomination push too, but I think like competition's too like heavy. Even though I thought he was good in the movie, I think it's a little bit too heavy. But he could get a nomination as producer because he produced the movie. So it'll be and it'll be interesting too because like Jerry Bruckheimer is a producer on it. I never thought you'd be like if it gets nominated for an Oscar, you're gonna have like Oscar nominee Jerry Bruckheimer. I never thought you would ever ever see that ever in life. Um, whatsoever. The guy who gave us produced such movies as like Armageddon. He might get a Oscar producing credit. Um, but
Wow.
I think it's gonna be pretty hard for Avatar to top that.
That's in a couple weeks, man. Wow, that's crazy. It
Yeah,
came
and
up
like
quick.
it came up quick, and it really has to take advantage of the holiday rush. I think if anything, like those 2 weeks, what between like that time that it comes out and then like the new year is when like a lot of these movies that are released during this time they kind of play like it's a weekend almost every day because like everyone's out off of work and then people are not in school,
Yeah.
so it's a really decent time for to do it. So I mean there's some hope that it will.
3 hours though. Damn,
That's a
that's
lot,
a
man.
long
I
time.
mean like and a part of me doesn't want to be left out of like seeing it because I want to talk about it. But like, I tend like unless I get like a press screening, I tend to go to movies kind of later in the night. Like I'll go with my little brother, and like we saw Black Panther at 8:45, and that movie was like 2 hours and 45 minutes. You get out of the theater, you're like wiped, and like I don't want to go see the Avatar sequel like 9 o'clock at night and get home at like after midnight.
Right.
Like I think my view of the movie might just be instantly like kind of hateful because I'm like I'm just tired. Like talk to me about it tomorrow. Like
Honestly, I don't know if I'll go unless I hear like this was super good. Like unless I hear like or the audience score is insane. Like I told you, I don't like go out of my way unless I'm like something like really draws me to it.
Right.
So I don't think I'm gonna. I'll probably watch the first one.
Yeah, I mean, I know, like you said, like a movie has to kind of draw you in to want to go to the theater to see it. I saw the menu on Thursday night, and that movie was actually really good, and it actually did pretty well at the box office considering it was kind of like offbeat, like kind of counter programming. It made like $9 million, and I think it was tracking a little bit less than that. Um, it's a really good movie for. I mean, it's funny. It's like a dark satire kind of thing, and like if you've ever there's a lot about like making fun of the rich and privileged, and like um there's also like if you've ever worked in the service industry, there's some good in jokes in there about that and people who pretend to be like influencers and foodies and stuff. Like it was like a really like I'm glad that like they went as wide. Like, apparently it's Searchlight's like widest release that they've ever had, so they had some faith in it. Um and it was just like it was a good like ensemble movie. Like Anya Taylor Joy was really good in it. Ray Fiennes was amazing in it. Nicholas Hoult, wonderfully cringy and smarmy in it. He was like a huge asshole in the movie, but you could tell he was having a lot of fun playing that up a bit. Um, but it's interesting. On the one hand, you have something like that does decent this weekend, and then Universal Pictures, for whatever reason, when they release She Said this weekend, they released it wide, and like instead of like making it like a platform release, like this movie is about like the reporters that kind of broke the like Harvey Weinstein like Me Too kind of thing stuff, and it's getting a ton of Oscar buzz. It's getting a lot of like awards attention, but it's the kind of movie that you would normally see kind of platform, like you would open it gradually, and Universal went wide right away with it, and now it's being labeled a flop, which kind of sucks. I mean, it's still gonna probably get some awards love and stuff, but they made an interesting comment on Deadline. They were like, if you weren't from LA or New York, where a lot of this kind of Harvey Weinstein stuff kind of happened, you live in middle America, you're not gonna probably even know anything about She Said or want to see it. I think it's like it's a very niche kind of movie. But I'm kind of surprised that they even chose to release it that way, especially knowing that it could have momentum like as we get closer to like award season and the Oscars and stuff. Like I kind of think they dropped the ball on like at least having it perform a little better. I think it only made like $2 million this weekend, and it'll probably be gone pretty quick.
I think they didn't as much as they could have.
I don't think they did either. I mean, and it sucks because like they know what they had. They had a good movie. I mean, clearly it's getting a lot of buzz, and like
that people should know about.
You definitely should know about it. I only knew about it because like you work in the industry, like you hear about it, and like the trailer. I'm seeing it this week, but the trailers were all good. It was like it could. I kind of got the impression if they would have released it right, it could have done what like Spotlight did, which is like a similar kind of premise about like journalism and like kind of a hard hitting story. Like you kind of release it slowly, then you allow it to build momentum a bit. And I think a movie like Spotlight shows that something like She Said could have done really well, or at least well enough. If they had just had a better like. I was like, that's so random to just like, week before Thanksgiving, but like, here you go, and then like shove it out there. Yeah. But like industry people like it. It's getting a lot of good reviews. It just kind of sucks because like you said, I think it's an important movie for people to kind of see, and it kind of sucks that it's gonna get like lost in the shuffle a bit.
I feel like if it was like I feel like if it was like on Netflix or like something, I think more people would watch it. Because like it's like, oh wow, I've heard about this. I'm gonna go ahead and click on watch this movie. Like, I don't know. I don't think a lot of people want to go out of their way to like go see that. Like you said, a week before Thanksgiving, right before like the big holiday movies start to come out. Like
Right. I think
very
so.
random.
I think you're right about that too. Uh, I mean, I'm sure someone in their offices is like, how the hell do we do this? How do we screw this up? And, like, and you make a good argument about like the streaming thing because like in this case, since it's Universal, they probably would have done something with Peacock if they were going to put it on a streamer. Um, my train of thought is
That's true.
if you do that, you did it for Halloween Ends. You released it in theaters and on Peacock at the same time. Like, there's something to be said about like these smaller movies, more intimate movies. They play, unfortunately, like I think what 2020 kind of showed us with like when everything shut down is that some of these smaller movies play better at home. I mean, I'm not saying that they shouldn't get a theatrical release. Like, I would love for like a lot of people to support smaller movies like this. Um, but I also think you have to be smart about like what the times are kind of changing, and I think this would have played really well at home if you would have played it.
Agreed.
Like you could, I think more people would have seen it even over this opening
Agreed.
weekend. Um, so it's funny because we're going through that debate now with like the Knives Out sequel. Like it's getting 1 week as a theatrical release, and that's this week. That was the deal that like Netflix struck with like movie theaters, and and that's not even good enough for a lot of movie theater exhibitors because they're like they remember how much money the first film made, and and not only did Knives Out make a lot of money, but this was like a movie that was geared more towards adults, older people, uh, which doesn't always make a lot of money, but like you had like it did really well worldwide, did really well here. It got some Oscar love as well for its screenplay, and like it got a lot of attention, and I can see why like a lot of movie theater like the people like the guy the CEO for AMC was like kind of disappointed that Netflix bought two of these sequels, and it's just like, yeah, sorry. um and by the way, it's going to be hard to determine the bar of success because apparently from this 1 week of they're not going to release those numbers, so we're not going to know. Netflix is going to keep them to themselves. I think that's kind of, it's not shitty. I mean, it's their prerogative, but like that's why the streamers aren't just like transparent enough with like how, and like they're it's crazy because they're not transparent enough about how their films do at home, and now you have a movie that's going to be playing for a week in theaters, and like you can't even be transparent about how it does for 1 week of wide release. Like, just tell us how it did. um like I'm seeing it in theaters because I want to see it in theaters. Like I also don't want to wait until, yeah. So yeah, Knives Out. So it comes out on November 23rd for a week, and then it'll hit Netflix the next month in December. Um, I know a lot of people said they'd rather go see it in the theater. I would be really interested to know like what kind of business it does in that 1 week. Um,
Agreed.
yeah, it's just I go back and forth on it, man. Like sometimes I understand yeah, this is kind of like the
There's
business.
definitely pros and cons.
Yeah, and Netflix spent a lot of money on a second and third movie, so they're like, I know they want to kind of have all that success be on their platform, so I get it, but like it does suck that I think I would have loved to see if this movie could have performed as well as the first one did, because like the reviews are already really good for it. Some people are saying it's a little better than the first one or just as good. Um, but yeah, it would have been interesting to see how it performed, but now we'll never know because Netflix doesn't want to share any of that information with us. Um, but yeah, I mean, like I guess I can ask you, like, I guess with like you said you have like DVDs and stuff like that. When it comes to rewatching stuff, like, do you find yourself like on streamers a lot, like watching like more stuff at
Yeah.
home?
I think so. I mean, like if you can go on like YouTube and like rent it for like $3 or like Apple. I have Apple TV, so they have a lot of movies on there. I like all the streaming stuff. Like and like you said, like we found out over 2020 over like the COVID, like I can just watch this on my and not have to deal with all that. Like I think that's cool. But the days of
Yeah.
buying it on DVD are very rare unless you like love it.
So like yeah, I mean like I love physical media. Like I have like you can kind of see like the little movie stuff right here, right? So it's so funny. Like my buddy Owen, who like was a co-host on this show, and then like we're actually spinning off this show into something else that he's going to be a part of. Um, we were talking about like when I was wanting to show him 25th Hour, and I brought over like my Blu-ray, and he was like, people still have those. He's like, I just like rent it. I'm like, I'll just get it on Apple TV, and I was like, oh, all right, cool. I mean, I was trying to save you. I was trying to save you a few bucks, but if you want to rent it, just go ahead and rent it. He's like, yeah.
Think
He's
about
like,
like, I like when they like they have a reason for you to buy it. Like this Blu-ray, but it also has like deleted scenes or like special features. Like you can like click that. That will make me buy it. But I think more people are starting to do that.
yeah, I know. Like, and I'm, like I said, I like love movies, so like all the like bonus stuff on Blu-rays and stuff, like that's what I mean. Like I'll listen to like audio commentaries for movies I like really like. Uh
Uh-huh.
and of course like deleted scenes and stuff, and you're like, you want to be like, whoa, why'd you delete that? That was perfect. Why'd you get rid of that? Like there's certain like stuff like
Very
that, and like
true.
you can't really get that on the streamers sometimes. And then like someone made a good point that like once like they were remove certain things off of a platform, it's not like they made a point about that with Amazon. Like if they pull a movie from their library, even though you bought it to own it, like you don't own it because like if they pull it, then you don't have it anymore. Um, and they kind of hide that in their fine print about the, but like that's at least with this, like I could have it. I don't necessarily, like my friends are always like, well, like how do you decide what to watch? I was like, sometimes I just stare at all that and be like, I should be watching something new, and I'll just pop in something I've watched like a lot, like over and over and over again, instead of like catching up on something new. Like I was
Yeah,
joking
I'm
with,
with you there.
or I'm watching something really bad on TV. Like I was joking with you, like when you're like, oh, I'm running a little late, and I was like, just watching fucking Judge Judy like a nerd at home, and like I have like a brand new movie sitting right next to me. Like, dude, just put that in. So watching
I'm in the
Judge,
mood to like movie out though. I'm like, yeah, like I'm, that's moving out. It's a big deal.
yeah, it definitely is. Um, I do like just kind of want to talk to you about this a little bit. There was a couple of trailers last week that kind of came out. One being for Emancipation with Will Smith, which is getting like a release on Apple TV Plus. As you know, like there was a whole thing at the Oscars with Will Smith and the slap heard around the world. Everyone thought that like they were gonna delay this movie a little longer. They are still going to push it for like Oscar consideration, even though he can't go for another 10 years. He can get nominated. He can get nominated. He just can't attend. Um, Trailer's really good. I actually think the movie looks really good. I'm not the hugest fan of like movies like this because I feel like uh, I don't know. It's just stories like that. Yeah, they're just so hard hitting. It's like I feel like once you've seen one movie about slavery, you've kind of
Yeah,
seen
we've
them
seen
all.
a lot of
Um, but it does look well made, and he looks good in it. Um, I had actually when I put it on my Instagram, someone was like, "I think it's kind of too soon for this to come out." Like they, like almost like he still has to.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm not saying that I'm against cancel culture. Like I mean, like I feel like if he kind of have a moment and then he can come back and like do. I mean, he's Will Smith. He's not gonna go away. Um,
I just feel like I can't really take him seriously anymore. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
I think that kind of the kind of pristine kind of the image that he kind of built up for himself over the years, like Big Willie style, the biggest movie star in the world, like constantly funny, like nothing seems to phase him, just very nice guy. That all got like put to shit like
right.
in, in one single moment, and it's and I think that night still kind of rubs people the wrong way, especially since what how many it wasn't even that long after that happened that he ended up winning the Oscar that night and like got up on stage and people stood up for him and were applauding him like and then he tried to talk away around like you know being emotional and like sometimes yeah like whatever. I'm not saying that he needs to
Right.
be punished forever. Like I don't think that. I actually think a 10-year Oscar ban is like way too long, and I actually think they'll probably rethink that and reevaluate it later,
Uh,
and they let him come back sooner. Um, but I kind of got the too soon vibes from it too. Actually, I think they could have held it until next year, and I think the reason they didn't hold it because Scorsese has his movie with Leonardo DiCaprio that was going to be at the end of this year, but like Scorsese is like meticulous about editing and it's just not ready yet. And I think they were like, well, we have this movie that's ready, and it can get us a lot of attention. And they kind of sneakily they had these like private screenings for it first that were like they revealed kind of out of nowhere. Like he was in attendance for, I think people that were invited were like cleverly like picked as who was gonna go, like people who kind of still support him. I know like Tyler Perry was at one of them, and like people who still have his back. And I think they're trying their best to roll it out the best way they can. It just seems like it's in, like I said, I don't want to live in a space where like you're punishing him forever. I just think like next year would have been great, and because now you're going to be putting him in a position where like uh he's going to get some praise for it. And I'm not saying if it's a good performance, it's a good movie. Yeah, right. Deserving, of course, right? But like, you know, I never really felt, and like, he doesn't owe this apology to us. It's not like he's not like he slapped us. I never really, whether it was like the first apology that seemed like it was written more by a publicist rather than himself, or the one he ended up doing on camera, which he released on his website and his social media platform. So that's also carefully done too, right? I never felt he gave like a genuine, heartfelt like apology. Like,
yeah,
I think he gave I just think he gave a Hollywood apology.
Okay. We should have like took Chris Rock out to eat and like had a picture with Chris Rock, and then everyone would have been like, "Oh, Chris Rock." Like,
yeah, and like like that would have been a good thing to show. And like I know like when he did his last apology, he was like he hadn't talked to Chris yet, and I don't think Chris was ready to talk to him. Right. And perfectly understandable. I think it would take me a while too to like want to speak to you after you slap me in the face. No matter how much fucking comedic mileage I got out of it, no matter how many shows I probably sold out after the slap, because you're like waiting to see if I'm going to like bring it up. That'd be a hard one to forgive, man. It'd just be a really hard one to like have a sit down talk with you. But yeah, that's coming out at in December, and it'll be on Apple TV Plus, so you'll be able to watch it at home if you. Yeah, really quick. Yeah, so yeah, it's gonna be interesting. And then I I'm only bringing this trailer up because I promised one of the girls I would bring it up, which is and I actually saw it when I went to go see The Menu. They had a trailer for Magic Mike's Last Dance, which is like the third Magic Mike movie.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how many is there?
This will be the third one. So for those that don't know at home, like the first Magic Mike is like loosely based on like Channing Tatum's like life, because he used to be a dancer or like stripper. Like, what's the best way to put it? Male exotic dancer. So like dancer. So it's loosely based on his life. But the interesting thing about it is like it's directed by Steven Soderbergh. So it was like this movie that kind of was like clearly made for the way they promoted it. They really promoted and sold it to women, right? But then they kind of tricked them, because like, I mean, I've seen it, and they kind of tricked them because it's more of like a art house movie rather than like a mainstreamy, like kind of like, because it's made by Steven Soderbergh. So like,
yeah, damn.
So while there is a ton of like eye candy and all the things that the ladies and some of the dudes want to see, it really isn't a lot of it. Like as much as you would like think that there might be, because again, it's Steven Soderbergh, and this guy is more known for making like really good movies rather than like, he really bought into like Channing Tatum's story. He really liked it, and like that's why he did it. Yeah. Now, movie cost nothing to make, made a ton of money. And then so they made a sequel, which is he did not direct. So he didn't direct it, which is probably why the sequel is less of an art house film and more of a shirtless dancing male extravaganza rather than the first movie. Made a little bit less money than the first one, but still made enough to kind of turn a profit. This third one was supposed to go straight to HBO Max, and I'm assuming that at the ever-changing Warner Brothers Discovery, somebody saw it and was like, "Hey, like, why are we putting this on HBO Max? Let's release it theatrically." So it is coming out just in time for Valentine's Day next year. The trailer's not good.
Okay.
I didn't like. Yeah, it's gonna be the last one, and they actually made a point in the trailer to tell you with some of like the little cue cards, like like this is like basically it's all in the title. It's his last dance, so this is the last one we're getting from him. Um, but I know
Okay.
like I know he's going to London in this one. He somehow links up with Selma Hayek. She's in it. I think he kind of gives her some kind of like sexual awakening or something because she takes him with her to London. Um,
Okay.
I was at. It doesn't look good, and I actually like Shane Tatum. I think he's like pretty good actor and like he's done some good stuff.
Agreed.
Um, I'm not even a hater on like the first Magic Mike. I think it's good. The second one's not that good. But I was just so surprised. Like when I watched the trailer, I was expecting something more because like usually when like they switch from like okay we're gonna release this on streaming to being like no we're gonna release it in theaters. I'm like oh this must look really good. And then the whole
Mhm.
time I was watching the trailer, I was like this looks like it was made for HBO Max and like not for theaters at all. It doesn't look like it's uh I'm doing this one for you, Ashley. So that's one. This is all for you because you wanted me to bring it up. I'm sure you will be there seeing it on Valentine's Day with all your girlfriends. Um, I'm only seeing it if work forces me to see it, so there's that. um, I just could I was like my brother saw the menu with me and he was like, wait, he's like, how did this like? I was like, this was supposed to go to HBO Max. He's like, it still looks like it should be. Like, why is it like I know it looks doesn't look good. Um, but I'm sure it wasn't you know expensive to make, and I think I the only confident thing I have is that Steven Soderbergh did come back to direct this one, and I rarely go wrong with him, but it just doesn't. I don't think we would. Well, I don't think we thought we'd be three Magic Mike movies deep at this point, uh,
Yeah. Right.
whatsoever. Um, you know, one of the things I did want to ask you about too before we close up is you know Steven Spielberg is I guess it's not going to be a remake of Bullet. It's going to be a new story. Basically, Bullet is a like Steve McQueen movie from back in the day. Uh,
It's
probably
a new
has
story.
yeah, probably because it's probably known for like having one of the best car chase scenes like ever. Especially for a movie that came out so long ago. Um,
Mhm.
Bradley Cooper is going to be the lead, and Steven Spielberg is directing it as his next project. Now, this kind of got like a mixed reaction from a lot of people who like thought they were remaking it. This is, I think it's going to kind of be like what this is a really weird comparison, but do you remember when like Samuel L. Jackson did like Shaft, and instead of like it being like a remake, it was more of just like different story, like a continuation with like a new person like taking on the role, right? So it wasn't really a remake of like the first movie, and that's what they're gonna do with this. I think it's really interesting that like Steven Spielberg is in a really interesting spot in his career where it's like he's making West Side Story one year, he's doing The Fablemans this year, which is about his life as like growing up wanting to be a filmmaker, and now he chooses his next project to be like this, and like even someone like Steven Spielberg is not immune to like yeah, I know you're saying it's not a remake, but it's close enough. uh, he doesn't seem like someone that would do something like that. But I guess he did it with West Side Story, and that turned out to be, a lot of people said that you shouldn't have touched that, and it ended up being decent, decent movie. Plus he's Spielberg. I guess he can do whatever he wants. Um, and then you got Bradley Cooper leading it too, man. I mean, like I think
Yeah.
it's a really good choice for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
He's a really good actor.
I don't know. Like, do you is that what you want next from Spielberg though? Like if you were like if you had like I mean he's getting up there, right? So I mean he said he has no plans of slowing down making movies, but like is this the direction you want him to go in?
'Cause he made the first one, right? Like he directed the first one, right?
I'm not sure actually. Actually, let me look that up. Um, yeah, I don't even know
She's a,
why he would want to even want to
it's
do it.
just like
Let me see.
yeah.
So the first one came out in 1968. Oh, it's directed by Peter Yates. So yeah, he has nothing to do with the original movie. It might just be like a
He was
favorite
like,
of his.
I guess you would know more than me. Like, how does someone like a director like that go about like picking his next movie like that? Like, how does do they pitch him a couple of different ideas or like?
Wow, you know what? I think it's interesting, right? I think when you're Spielberg, like I don't even think he pitches anything anymore, right? I think at this point it's like I want to do this.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like I think when you get up there, when you get to a certain point,
definitely handpick what he wants to do. Yeah,
right,
and like
right,
they're like, yeah, we'll throw whatever you want to make because you're Steven Spielberg. Like,
right, like yeah. I mean, like he got like a lot of, even though West Side Story was well received, it didn't make a lot of money, and it's a very rare like Spielberg like. I mean, that was the one you could call a flop because it cost a lot to make and it really didn't make all that much money here. But like even when someone like him has a miss, right? I still think if you're a studio and he's like, I want to make this, like, you give him what he wants. You give him what he wants. So I don't think he has like to pitch anything anymore. I think he kind of can like, yo, I want to do this, and people will work with it.
Point. He went out of his way to make this.
Yeah, it's just like a really choice.
Where he's like, I want to do little things like different like that. Like you said, like he's doing West Side Story, he's doing like about his own life, and now he's doing this. I feel like he's wanting more different things, which is like understandable, I guess.
Right.
I think a lot of people because Bradley Cooper as the lead, like that's a cool. I mean,
yeah, no, it is at least you got some good pedigree behind it.
Right.
Yeah. And like you said, like I mean, he's getting up there in age. He probably is like, I just want to do whatever I want. Like it's kind of like, and sometimes that's like a really cool period for like even like a filmmaker or an actor or anyone to kind of be in that kind of like stage of their life where they just want to try something new. We kind of brought that up a little bit with like Pierce Brosnan, like yeah, I'll do Black Adam because why not? Like like I'm in like this seasoned part of my career, like yeah, of course I want to do it.
I have a take for you. One of the best Steven Spielberg movies I've seen in recent memory is Ready Player One. I think that like as like alternate realities like are like this like mass like becoming like bigger. That movie's gonna like I think it's gonna be like whoa, like he kind of like called this like before it all kind of happened, which is super cool to me.
Dude, Spielberg to me, like, first of all, there's certain people that are just like born to make certain movies like that, and I think that Ready Player One was like made for him to do it. Like he's all like, so like the one thing that he does, well, more than one thing, but like I think one of the best things he does as a filmmaker is like he kind of taps into like what we love, like nostalgia and all that stuff. Like he isn't afraid to like kind of like fall back on that. I actually think that's what kind of keeps him relevant and fresh as a filmmaker, because he is constantly like, he has his pulse on what's new, but he also isn't afraid to like kind of look back at like, hey, look at these things we kind of grew up with. And he has this kind of like childlike thing as a filmmaker that like, but still is making really great like artistic choices with some of his movies. And Ready Player One, I remember when I was watching that, I was like, you're tapping into like everything that every nerd loves right now, and you were like running with it. Absolutely running with it. And like
DeLorean, we had Godzilla, we had it all, man.
Yeah, dude, that's something that he like during the 80s, that's something he would have made in the 80s, like in his like heyday. Like that could have easily been like an ET or anything like that. And like certain filmmakers just born to make certain movies, and I think like he was definitely born to do that one. So glad actually, you know what? I might rewatch that one again soon. I haven't watched it in a while. Like it's a really fun movie. Really fun movie. I just thought about this before I let you go. I thought it was interesting. I was watching I posted that thing about Quentin Tarantino saying that he thinks Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is his best movie. Oh, yeah. So as funny as I said, I respectfully disagree, but there's another part of that quote I forgot to like. I guess he also said that this era of filmmaking is like probably the shittiest we've seen in like a while, which I guess if you're a filmmaker making movies right now, that's a pretty shitty thing to hear. But did you see Once Upon in Hollywood?
Yeah, I did. I saw it in theaters actually.
Do you think that's his best movie?
No.
Okay. I didn't want to be that
good watch.
It's a really good movie. Yeah.
But it's not his best. No way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the easy answer is Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
I've always been partial to Jackie Brown, but I'm the very, very vast minority on that. I love that movie, and I actually get
I like
more.
Django Unchained a lot too. I
That
think
that's a
that's
good one.
super
Actually think that's better than Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Um,
agreed.
he also owes us one more movie. I know he's doing a limited series. He talked about that he has a limited series he wants to do, and he does owe us what he would call his 10th movie. He said he would do 10 movies, and then he was going to tap out as a director. So he still owes
Yeah,
us one
that's right.
more. Still owes us one more. Um, but yeah, I actually got a lot of people messaging me saying that they actually thought Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was his best overall uh
Really?
film.
I'll
Yeah,
have
and
to
I was
rewatch
surprised.
that.
I was surprised. Dude, I mean, I think that's a solid movie, and the performances are great in it. Like, it's like
Right.
Leonardo DiCaprio's great, Brad Pitt's great. I even thought Margot Robbie, for as small as that part was, also was really good. In certain moments in the
Uh-huh.
movie. I can't wait to see Babylon. By the way, if that movie's on your radar, that probably should be. It looks like a lot of fun. I know like it's gotten some crazy mixed responses already from people who are like one of the best things I've ever seen to like this is just a messy piece of work. And I was like, oh, I need to know exactly what's so messy about it. Because it looks, I mean, the guy who directed La La Land and Whiplash, uh, and First Man. So like,
Oh, wow.
there's that pedigree. And Margot Robbie looks like she's having the time of her life.
Yeah, it comes out in like a month.
Yep, yeah, it comes out in December. Just right in time for the holidays. You get to see a movie about
Some
like
good movies.
December is always like a pretty good like sweet spot. I mean,
I
they
said
hold
this wasn't a as a rare.
yeah. I mean, after it was crazy because we had that this past summer we had so many movies coming out week after week, right? That was making a ton of money, and then like you can tell that was like some pandemic scheduling because when we got to like mid August, there was like a gap of nothing, where it was just from mid August until basically Black Adam. There was like it was we got the occasional like we got like Don't Worry Darling that did all right, and then we got the Woman King that did pretty well, but there was a serious gap of stuff, and then now it, November through December, we're gonna have like a few more things down the pipeline. So that it's exciting. It's an exciting time to kind of be going back to the movies. I think I'm excited. And then also, uh, I'm kind of looking forward to what like the 2023 movies have to. I mean, like it's so. I was talking to someone that it's so weird that the year is almost over. Like the fact that like Thanksgiving is this week and like I'm like, dude, like my birthday's next month. That's in December. Like the year is closing out so fucking quick. Like, and, we just had our 1 year anniversary on the show. That was like 2 weeks ago, and I was like, I can't believe that had been a year. Like, it all kind of went by like really really fast. Um, but it's cool, and like it's I tagged you in that post like as you've been one of the guests that you come on, and like it's cool like I kind of have people like you on to kind of discuss these things because you're just like the rest of us. Like you enjoy all this stuff, and you don't mind nerding out for like a little bit.
Yeah, I'm always down to nerd.
And you're like, yeah, you're open to the conversation. That's why I was like, dude, like I want to throw something at you. Like, I'm trying to rotate guests in and out. So like, but if you like want to be one of the people that like, you're feeling comfortable about it, like I would love to have you on whenever you're willing to be on.
Let's do it.
Yeah, it's a good conversation.
A bunch of new movies on my radar. I'm pumped up.
I know, right? You have to like, yeah. I'll throw some more your way for like. I really don't feel like going to the movies, but if I have to, I'll see this. um, but yeah, yeah. But I think you have some. I think you have some solid options. But like, you're also like me. Like I like rewatching stuff at home and everything too. Like that's like kind of what the show that me and my buddy Owen are gonna do. That's spinning off of this is gonna be more like movie focused. Like we're gonna be like kind of deep diving into like different movies every other week, whether it's something new or something old, and it'll be less about like the industry news and more about like just one in particular movie itself, which is gonna be really fun because I think we're gonna kind of revisit some things. Hopefully, like the stuff he picks, maybe I've never seen it, so that part of it'll be really fun, and maybe he'll pick something I don't like, and maybe
Cool.
I'll pick something he doesn't like. But yeah, that's the good thing about it. It's gonna be like a fun kind of debate kind of show about movies and everything. So that actually we'll be recording that first episode on December 5th. So very, very soon. As if I don't have like enough to do already. I'm just gonna add another add another show to the mix.
Why not? Why not?
Why not, right? Like if you're doing something you love, whatever. But yeah, thank you again for being on and talking with me for a little bit about some of this stuff. We'll love to
Yeah,
have you on. Love to have you on again. We have some fun anniversary episodes coming up too. And like I said, you said you're willing to watch a lot of rewatch stuff at home. So maybe like if there's something that you rewatched and you're like, dude, I kind of want to talk about that movie, then that'd be a fun thing for you to hop on as well. Like, you know, that we're kind of doing a little bit more of that too. So yeah, thank you once again. And as always, guys, if you want to listen to us, you can listen to us across all of our various podcast platforms, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Google Podcasts, wherever you know you decide you want to listen to us. I know we get a lot of our stuff on Good Pods and Apple Podcasts, so thank you for still listening on that. Like I said, we'll be recording the spin-off show on December 5th. And I think on next week's episode I'm gonna kind of focus a little bit more on like what Oscar season has to offer, because we're kind of in that period a little bit, and kind of see like what might get nominated, what might not. You know, uh I used to kind of not like this time of year because like I think the Oscars can be kind of snobby, but it's kind of hard not to get in the mix of it because you're like, especially if it's something that you like, a movie that you really like and you support. So like that would kind of be fun to dive into. And yeah, thank you once again, Zach, for being on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure. Peace out.
Thanks for having me, man. I'll keep in touch.
Oh, you definitely will, man. And we'll definitely have you back on again. It's a very good conversation. So
Peace,
thank
bro.
you so much. Hey guys, just wanted to address a little something that I didn't get a chance to address on the episode tonight. I'm recording this right after Zach and I wrapped up recording for this week. I wanted to address the passing of Jason David Frank, played Tommy Oliver on the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, best known as the Green Ranger and later becoming the White Ranger. I know I didn't watch the show much after that. I know he's been on quite a bit. You know, of course, like with a lot of things, you just kind of grow out of certain things you watch as a kid, and I hadn't kept up with like, you know, his reappearances in the years after that. But I, you know, purportedly, unfortunately, passed from committing suicide at the age of 49, leaving behind 4 kids and a ton of fans who really loved and admired him. I was taken aback by reading a lot of the stuff that fans were posting on Instagram and Twitter, and you know, a lot of them saying like, you know, their childhood hero, they feel like they lost their childhood hero, and I kind of felt that in a sense too. I mean, when I first heard the news, I was just completely shocked and floored by it, because I think sometimes you kind of forget how you kind of grow up with some of these people on TV and all that. And you know, I remember being a huge fan of Power Rangers when I was a kid, so that would make me like 10 or 11 when by the time he got on the show in 93, I believe. And the whole like Green Ranger like story arc was epic level television for kids. If you guys remember, he started off as a villain, kind of put in there by Rita Repulsa. This is so weird to like go back and like think about all this stuff, but started as a villain, and it was supposed to be, I believe, for like a quick arc, but he became such a fan favorite that they made him an integral part of the show. You know, and eventually, you know, of course, his powers started to deteriorate, and then he leaves, but then he comes back as the White Ranger and becomes like the de facto leader of the team. As a kid, I remember the Green Ranger was the one that everyone wanted to be. You know, growing up, you know, everyone had their favorites, but like Tommy was just like the epitome of coolness when you were a kid, because you know he just stood out amongst the rest of the group, even though like, you know, every individual Power Ranger had their share of fans and like things to love about them. I think that Tommy just instantly became such a fan favorite because I think there's a sincerity and genuineness, a genuine spirit that like Jason David Frank had as a performer on that show. And I think um, what I've come to know, I mean, I got to meet him a few years ago at Comic Con, and it was a brief encounter, but from what I gathered from the conversation, it was just that he really loved his fans and he really loved his time on that show. And I think with certain performers, like when they're on a show like this, it'd be easy for them to be like, "Oh, well, I'm into this other thing now. I don't really want to talk about it." He was consistently very good with his fans, and he really much embraced being a part of that show. And I think actually most of the people that have come through that show from all the different versions, like especially talking about like the early stuff that I grew up with, a lot of those people I follow on Instagram, and they still speak very highly of it. And everyone that was on the show with him had very lovely things to say about him as a person. Um, he seemed to just be really well loved by everyone that met him, and it just ended up being like a really sad thing to hear. I mean, like mental health is very, very real, guys, and maintaining it is something that we all have to be good at and vigilant about. It's something that we all need to pay attention to. I know myself, like sometimes if I'm going through something, sometimes I'll try to handle it on my own because I don't want to like burden anyone. But like really, the thing to do if you're feeling like things are hopeless and you feel like that's your only way out, just try to find at least one person to talk to, and maybe they can, point you in the right direction of getting like real professional help because, that's never the answer to end your life. And I know that for some people it seems like there is no other answer, but there's always another option. Um, I just think we have to be better at like not making it such a stigma talking about our feelings and what things that we're going through. Uh, I think we all need to be a little bit better about that. Um, you know, because you never honestly know what anyone's going through. I guess that's why I think some people are shocked when they hear about these kind of things because on the surface it appears that the person has everything and really they've been struggling and you know I guess the only consolation to all this is that he's finally at peace and probably isn't, soul and mind is at ease now. And it sucks that it has happened like this. Um, but at least he probably, has achieved the peace he probably been wanting for himself for a while now. Um, I just wanted to bring it up as someone that grew up with it, grew up with watching him, and I got to meet him briefly once, and you know, that show, that character was such a big part of my childhood. I remember, uh, if you guys kind of grew up in that era, the Power Ranger action figures were very hard to find, and the Green Ranger was extremely hard to find. I remember sending my mom out on missions to find a Green Ranger action figure, which she eventually tracked down. But it took some time to get it, and I had his dagger, like the flute, and also had his Zord, his Dragon Zord. I was a huge fan of that show, but also just a huge fan of his on that show. I mean, that was the character you wanted to be because he was just stood out as the coolest. Um, my thoughts are with his family and friends and fans. I mean, it's a really sad thing to hear, but uh, I hope he can kind of see all the love that he's been getting since this news broke. Like so many people, he meant a lot to so many different people, um, and still to this day, a lot of people kept mentioning like this is my childhood hero, and that is it's a beautiful thing to see online to kind of see everyone sharing their memories of meeting him and like different things. Everyone has so many nice things to say, and it's nice to see his fans kind of uniting in that, even though it's over something very sad and unexpected, to a lot of us. But I just wanted to say a little something about it. Be remiss if I didn't mention it at all. It was one of those things that hit me harder later when I heard the news initially. I think I was more shocked, and then the more I kind of sat with it, I was Yeah, it does feel like a little piece of your childhood kind of went away with that. But I hope everyone holds on to all their memories of him. I actually have, I think I have like all the early seasons of Power Rangers I have on a hard drive. So I might revisit some of those, some of his stuff. His Tommy, Green Ranger, White Ranger. It'll be a nice little revisit, a nice little trip down memory lane. But yeah, R.A.P. Still so hard to believe, but really loving all the reactions I'm seeing from everyone on social media about what he meant to so many different people. And I think eventually that will be like a nice comfort for his family and friends to kind of see and hold on to as well. He really made an impact, and that's what kind of counts in this life. So definitely made an impact on me as a child. So R.A.P. Jason David Frank, you will be certainly missed.